actually brought a form of Hindu storytelling to your English classes. How did that all come about?
Well, actually, it's a class called HP 101, which is a class dedicated to art, myth, and literature. So I was really excited to find a temporary exhibit at the Smithsonian called The Royal Paintings of Jodhpur. And in the exhibit contained probably about 100, 150 paintings. They were magnificent paintings from roughly the 17th and 18th century. And they contained many of the Hindu myths. For example, one room, essentially, was dedicated to the Ramayana, the epic Ramayana. And so I took all my students on a Saturday. We spent approximately 5 hours there.
Wow.
And actually, I went both Saturday and Sunday so that if they worked, they could do both. And we went through, and they were able to, because we were studying myths and literature, they were able to actually see embodied in the art with these beautiful colors all the various incidents and plot structures and characters that are contained in the Ramayana. In addition, we went to a storytelling at the Smithsonian. The storyteller told the story of the Ramayana. She also told the story the very next day on Shiva's wedding procession, and that was really wonderful. And then as a product, my students did actually three things. One of them, they had a part of their exam was based on the Smithsonian, writing about the relationship between literature and art. The other one is that each student had to do a PowerPoint presentation. Okay. And so they did, many of them did the Ramayana, and so they chose selections from the Ramayana, and then they showed the pictures from the exhibit, the Royal Paintings of Jodhpur, as well. Another student did the Krishna Lily paintings, and she read the Bhagavata Purana, which I'm sure she had never heard of before. And so it exposed them to more than what we were doing in class. And in addition to that, it allowed them to see illustrated in a very physical, magnificent way what these epics and literary pieces were all about. In addition, we had Indian food. We met the curator there one day. And then I was also able to take them on a visit through the Freer and the Sackler to see other objects of art, such as the sculptures of Shiva, sculptures of Nandi, the bull.
It's a whole different experience to see that than to just read about it in a book, isn't it?
Right, and they loved standing there, you know, next to Shiva, and some of them even posed in Shiva's poses. I didn't take those pictures, but they had a wonderful time.
How important for all of you, I guess this can be, to get the students out of the classroom. Not only are they getting out of the classroom, well, they're getting out of the classroom and they're going to Smithsonian museums, just to sort of, I guess break the norm of sitting in a classroom and watching you lecture.
It's very refreshing for all of us, for the professors as well as the students. And I think it implicitly makes the point that learning goes on everywhere, and that what you learn in a classroom can be applied everywhere. Sort of breaks the bonds of the classroom doors and the textbook book covers.
Right.
In fact, many of my students said that they would come back again. Some of the students said they were going to come back and bring their children.
So it goes to a new
generation, clearly diffusion of knowledge. Yes. And some of the students, one student said she had never been to a museum before at all. And another student said she had been to museums before, but never had understood what she was seeing. So because we prepared for that in advance, they were truly understanding what they saw.
But I think it also shares with the students that the gravitas of learning can actually be fun.
Right. Very important.
It's a new experience, yes. Well, we've talked a lot about what the students received, but I'm curious about your own teaching. How has it changed you and the way that you approach subjects? Now you have a newfound knowledge of hip-hop music as well, but how has it changed the way that you approach your teaching as a whole, or maybe have approached other classes? They're all thinking. Yeah.
Well, you're using it again this year.
Although I am not an active fellow this year, we have an active alumni, and I'm continuing to use the model of the Smithsonian project. This year my students are going to the Natural History Museum to see the new ocean exhibit, so it's quite different from hip-hop. What last year's experience and this year's have taught me is to loosen up to loosen up and lighten up and take some risks and trust the strength of the curriculum to be relevant inside and outside the classroom, and it works.
Did you find it difficult to bring this innovation and these new methods of teaching, I guess you can say, but yet you still have to stick to the core objectives of the syllabus? Is there a fine line? Maybe Dr. Childs, did you find that?
I really believe that this professional development opportunity enhanced my teaching skills and teaching abilities. So I think it's quite complementary, really, to take, because when you're in the classroom year after year, I think it's very good to step out of the traditional mode and to examine materials either in greater depth and to have dialogues where this fellowship, which this fellowship permitted us to have. So I think engaging in the dialogue with colleagues and learning and sharing and implementing is very much an enhancing experience to the classroom and for our teachers and for our students.
And I was also able to learn from my students. Many of my students on this trip to the museum were Indian. So they were able to say, well, I really understand these Hindu myths, and let me tell you about the henna on the hands and the paintings and so forth and so on. So they were imparting knowledge to these students as well as I was imparting knowledge to the students. It was really a two-way path.
Kind of multi-generational, multicultural, multi-everything in this project. If we just have a little bit of time left, I'm wondering if each of you could share maybe a little bit of a story about one of your students that has maybe continued with the study or had a really sort of changing, life-changing, maybe that's too strong, but that type of experience. Everybody's thinking still.
Probably the most transforming experience was the student who had never been to a museum before.
Yes.
And she told me, I will be coming back over and over again. I didn't understand that this was in my backyard. Yes. I didn't understand the value of coming to a museum. I always thought it was a stuffy experience and not truly a fun experience. And she loved being with the other students. She loved discussing ideas. And she also realized how much she knew. It reaffirmed what she knew, and she wasn't intimidated anymore.
A very common thread, I think, among all of the fellows was this broadening experience for our students with this wealth of information just minutes away.
We want to thank you for broadening our experience today.
Thank
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If you want more information about the Smithsonian Faculty Fellowships or any of the programs at the Paul Peck Humanities Institute, visit montgomerycollege.edu/humanities.
And as always, if you have comments about today's show or suggestions for future episodes, send an email to campus.conversations@montgomerycollege.edu. For all of us here at Campus Conversations, I'm Marcus Rosanna.
And I'm Fritzi Bodenheimer. Thanks for watching.